The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit, a horror franchise podcast. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And today we're picking up the Friday the 13th conversation with Part 3, 3D, released in 1982. John, had you seen this before? And after Part 2, were you excited to see where Part 3 leads?
I had seen it before. This is one of the few that I actually had seen.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, as far as a movie, I think it went down. But as far as a theme park ride, which is ultimately what these movies want to be, I'd say up.
Yeah,
I think the gimmick of 3D really helped sell it.
I mean, it's been years since I've watched this one because usually, spoiler for the next episode, but usually when I'm in the mood for Friday the 13th, I'll throw on Part 4 or even Jason Goes to Hell or something like that. But I hadn't watched 3D in a long time. I can't stand 3D movies in the theater nowadays. Because they're just muddy, and I think it's just a dumb gimmick, really.
Yep.
Sorry to all the technicians that work hard to do that right now. But at the same time, obviously horror in 3D opens up so many fun possibilities.
Yeah. It leans into the gimmick and understands that it is a gimmick. Mm-hmm. I think part of the problem with 3D now is they want to be like, no, this is revolution and this is how we're going to watch things going forward. And this one, well, maybe, but let's just make it silly and fun and make it like a theme park ride, like a fun house,
right?
And have stuff pop out at you rather than just be let's make this world of blue people.
And even I remember the last time watching this, I was so overjoyed with all the stupid 3D things that they do. It made me, and it's still, even watching it this time, it's made me giggle every time they were 3D.
Because even not in 3D, it's even funnier because you can see what they're going for. It's so obvious what they're trying to do. And I wish I could have seen this thing in 3D.
Me too.
If they ever show it again, if a screening around town, I will absolutely go see it.
This also does have the tagline, A New Dimension in Terror, which made me laugh. Uh-huh. Absolutely. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. And I will always bring up the fact that 1982, the year that this was released, was just an absolutely insane year for these kind of movies. So there was, in 1982 was released The Thing, Poltergeist, I believe Mad Max, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, wow.
E.T., Blade Runner.
Wow.
Basket Case. There's a few more, too. You always remember, whenever I see something was released in 82, I'm just that was an incredible year.
Yeah, an embarrassment of riches, to be sure.
Yeah.
Which is funny. This knocked E.T. out of the top spot. I don't know how long it was there for a while, but this was the first one to overcome it. Yeah, which is just hilarious.
Jason takes E.T.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I want to see Jason get on board at the end of Close Encounters. They're doing the tones at him, and he's just hacking.
Right. It's the U.S. government has brought together its finest choices to go, and it's Jason.
One of them.
Yeah. I was trying to think of other movies that had done 3D around this era, and I think there's almost none. I want to say that it was House of Wax in the 50s or something to that effect.
Yeah, this really helped usher in a brief resurgence of that kind of thing. Because then not too long after this, you had Jaws 3D and Piranha 3D. That was much later.
Right, right. I did see, I did see Piranha 3D in the theater, and I did see My Bloody Valentine 3D in the theater in 2008 or so, and that was an absolutely great theater experience.
Saw 3D at one point threw a saw at the camera, and I was like,
there you go.
I got what I came to see. Everything else is gravy. That's fine.
The DP of this film had been researching for 6 months, how they could do 3D anything. And evidently the producers went to him and it's just oh, you're already ready to go. Let's do it. And I don't think he had necessarily been considering a horror film as the approach, but it makes absolute sense.
It absolutely does. Yeah. Like I said, for that kind of funhouse element to it.
This was one of my favorite little factoids when I was reading about it. Most of the other movies in this franchise, well, obviously the first two, took about 3 to 4 weeks to shoot. Mm-hmm. That's kind of average for a horror movie of moderate to low budget or a lot of indie films type of thing. This one took 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. So after the success of part 2, well, let's throw some money behind this and triple the schedule, which is, I don't know if the numbers work out to triple the budget, but, kind of. Evidently, the camera setups were infuriatingly long for the cast, who had to just wait and wait and wait for them. Like, horror movies are not really known for their acting, and it's more about the technicalities and getting that right. And so you add 3D to that, and gosh, what a shoot.
It had to be nightmarish at times. Like, I've had the misfortune of when 3D had its resurgence here in the early 10s. I had the misfortune of having to deal with that in post, and it's awful. And like, even with like the advent of technology, like it's everything's got to be so precise and thought through.
Yeah.
And this technology is brand new to these people, so they got to not only just try to make a movie, but they have to make a movie with this new fancy thing.
Right.
And it's funny because like, so here we are in the third one in the franchise. Well, how do we keep this thing fresh? Let's make it 3D. We're going to tell the exact same story because they're basically the Taco Bell of film franchises, where it's
right.
do we do meat, lettuce, tomato, or do we do lettuce, tomato, meat? This is just get some kids by a lake. This guy's going to kill them in different ways, and then we move on. And so they said, well, we're not going to mess with that, but we will make it fancier in 3D.
Make it fancier, spend a little bit more money, and lean into the funhouse aspect, like you were saying. One more question before we dive in. When you edited in 3D, did you wear 3D glasses?
I had to, yeah. And there were a couple times where when it went wrong, I had a headache for the rest of the day.
Oh my gosh!
It was like, I think I made my eyes go walleye or something like that.
Right.
I did one that was anaglyph, like with the red blue, and then I did one that was the more new technology with the things. I did a couple of those, but. Yeah.
Gosh. All right. Well, jumping right into this, I watched this on Blu-ray from the box set, and it gave me the option to watch it in 3D or 2D. And I sat there for a second, and I was like, well, I know that there are 3D televisions out there, and I certainly don't have one. But I went ahead and clicked 3D, but I don't know how that would have been any different than the 2D selection.
Oh. And was it slightly blurry in places or something?
I don't think so. Maybe I should have been
are
a little
you
bit
slightly
more
blurry in places?
I'm kind of blurry, yes. I guess I could have been more dedicated and watched it again in 2D and took notes, but no.
Yeah, I don't think the plot would have changed that much.
No. So yeah, it does open up with the 3D graphics going right into the screen, which of course we both love the original first and second. You know, this took it up a notch as it needs to,
as well as just the funky theme they got going for this one.
Oh man,
unexpected.
Total disco song with 50s spooky sounds in the background and stuff. And that immediately made me think okay, so the first two films, going for horror. Whether it works or not is set in an atmosphere. By part 3, they're just this is going to be a fun time at the movies. We're getting people in the seats and we're opening with disco.
Right. I mean, they wanted to have this one be the last one.
Right.
Steve Miner was I'm done doing it after this. Ron Kurz, who'd written the previous two, had stepped away because he didn't want to be known as the Jason guy. Yeah, so I think they were a little bit well, let's not make the exact same thing again. Let's do it. Let's have a little bit more fun with it. So
yeah, and you want to go right out of the gate with the fun too, because you've also had to spend the money and convince theaters to upgrade their systems too, which is kind of unheard of at the time, really. And so that also just says, from a franchise point of view, part 2 must have been wildly successful for them to spend the money and then convince theaters and exhibitors to be no, you need to upgrade your system so you can have the next one. And they did.
So you can have a Friday the 13th movie. Yeah. Which at the time, it worked. Because it made a shit ton of money, but, that's quite the gamble to take.
Exactly, yeah. So right off the bat, they throw right to the Jason theme, which, of course, my initial thought was, you only hear this theme when Jason's around. So we're just diving right in to Jason stalking. And then I realized that, much like part 2, we were just rewatching the end of the previous film.
And that's all they do. There's no okay, here's what happened on the last episode, and now here's the final girl now. No, it is just 8 to 10 minutes of this is what happened, just to catch you all up. Because there were no, Friday the 13th Part 2 explained videos yet.
Right. Yes.
But it is, it's just the end of it. And it actually kind of raises some further questions about what happened at the end of 2 and what happened to Jason in this interim tiny window, because this one takes place day after, Saturday the 14th or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure you heard the initial treatment for this was that that she was going to be in the a hospital and Jason was going to come and torment her, much like Halloween 2.
Right.
She was not available. She didn't really want to do it, said she wasn't available, had some other things going on. And so they scrapped that and just went with a whole new thing. It's kind of funny they even bothered to show you the last time on, since it's barely, it doesn't really matter.
I wonder how audiences would have reacted to, especially combining the 3D elements. Like, oh, wait, why is Jason in a mental hospital at this point? That's like, where's our woods? Where's our Crystal Lake? All that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you took him out. I mean, it would make more sense in terms of I am this golem seeking vengeance.
Right.
But that wasn't his MO. His MO in the second one was just like, you're on my property. Yeah. And I'm gonna kill you.
Exactly. Like, why would I go find her?
I mean, she did try to kill him.
Okay.
But I don't think Jason holds a grudge.
Yeah. I just thought of that as like the subheader for another title. Jason 9, Jason holds a grudge. Jason
blogs about it.
Yeah, we get through that bit, and then this whole next sequence that opens the film, I don't know about you, but it took a while. And like part of me really wanted to admire them for their tension building, but then I'm also just like, I'm here for a Jason film.
Yeah.
And I remember pausing it, and it was like a good 15, 16, 17 minutes between the last time on and this poor couple who own a convenience store. Mm-hmm. My big takeaway from this was just the simple fact that we've now like lost any motivation that Jason might have, because now he's just slaughtering like anybody. Right. This is where this turns,
You could, in theory, make the argument, well, he's killing all the people in this one because he's on the lam from the second one. And he knows, like, because cops have apparently, like, found a shack, found all this stuff. So he's kind of hiding out. And these people get onto where he's hiding out. Well, I got to stay hidden. So I'm going to kill all of them. It doesn't, if you think about that for 2 seconds, it completely falls apart. But
does not matter.
It's a passable motivation. Although I guess the director told Rick Brooker that played Jason, like, don't ever ask me about your motivation.
Yes.
Because you don't have any. You're just a killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know where these killers are, these people are in relation to that. Did he steal laundry from them?
I think the idea was he needed to change the clothes.
Okay, literally. That's sort of what I took from it. So yeah.
Yeah.
But then, no witnesses for that either. Like he's thorough.
Right. I was kind of impressed by like how slow and stalky this was, but still it was just like, we had to get in our 3D snake bite, at the camera. I did put in my notes there, drinking Jack Daniels on the crapper. Is this where we kind of take a dip in the franchise? Because, I mean, again, as much as I love this stuff, to me, the whole purpose of watching all these films in a row is like finding those right turns that we're taking. Jason killing people that aren't camp counselors is a bit of a right turn. This kind of gross out humor of like sitting there drinking Jack Daniels, it's a slightly different tone,
It's a lot more, forgive the pun here, campier. In the sense like this guy is Gabe Kaplan mania, not actually Gabe Kaplan, but a lookalike. Sitting on the toilet, and the soundtrack that accompanies that, the sound effects are just like old dogs. It's so bad. And so I think right off the bat, they're going like, all right, we're having some levity here. This isn't going to be as...
Exactly.
Not that, like the first one I think was a bit more like serious.
Yeah.
For being, still kind of goofy. But this, I think it's like, we're going to be having some fun here. So
strap in.
Yeah.
Harold just get nags to death by his wife.
Which this was written by the initial first draft was written by a husband and wife duo, which makes that scene. Yeah. Okay, was it just like he did a pass and was like, and then the bitch wife's doing this. And she's like, no, the lousy husband's doing this.
Exactly. Like, oh, you mean I can't just eat from the convenience store and drink Jack Daniels on the John? But yeah, poor Harold takes a meat cleaver to the chest. And then Harold's wife takes a knitting needle shoved through the back of her head, out of her mouth, and of course, right at us.
Right at the camera.
Audience. Yeah.
In the past, we've talked about Jason sort of being this, he punishes these gold brickers. So it's, I guess, you see enough of the guy stealing from the store and just, eating gluttonously, like eating his own supply and not respecting his wife. And then But I like to think he was punished for pooping.
Yeah.
Which is also, but to be fair, that's my Twitter handle. So
Punished for pooping.
I might be a little biased in that.
Yeah. You'd like to believe that Jason was going after all those men who don't respect their wives.
Yeah, yeah. He took himself. He's had a lot of time since his mom died. And, read a lot of self-help books he found in the woods.
There you go, in the woods. Yeah.
Some people hide their pornography in the woods. Other people hide marriage manuals.
Some people would say pornography is a marriage manual.
That's true. Sean Cunningham would, because he made those.
Right. So then we cut to our kind of new crop of teenagers. Rather than going completely beat by beat, we are introduced to Shelley, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
He's rather put upon. He's our quote unquote nerd of the group type of thing. First film he'd ever been in.
Yes, they just found him on the street. Well, not like lying there, but
Right.
he was walking down the street. Or I heard a story that he was just walking on the street, and then I heard a story that he was like handing out flyers for a different horror movie.
That's what I heard too.
He's also a new entry into the sort of our masculinity Venn diagram or whatever you want to call it that we've talked about. Because he's the prankster like Ned, but has none of that fake confidence or whatever. Like, he is a sad sack. And that's the first one of these characters we've had. Because even Ted in the second one, you just see him kind of be drunk and be like, "Oh, gosh." But this guy is just this self-pitying loser.
Look, Shelley, you're my roommate and I like you. Most of the time. But you've got to quit doing those things. Now, I got you a date, didn't I? Didn't I?
Yeah.
So don't embarrass me. Just relax. Be yourself.
Would you be yourself if you look like this?
Ouch, that actually kind of hurts.
Yeah.
I felt that a little bit, to be honest.
You're not expecting that in one of these movies.
No.
And it's a different, talk about taking right turns. This is a new element for it. Like a character with actual, like some sort of interiority, even though it might be bad.
I do consider him a little bit more of a standout than some of the others. He's a little bit more memorable and has a personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all kind of gather in the back of a van. And I did laugh when they get in the van and there's just two hippies like in the back, reveal of these two hippies just Cheech and Chonging it up in the back.
Yeah, here's a question I have. Why are they 35? We're like, hey, young people, you want to go to a cool cabin for the weekend? Yeah, absolutely. Can I bring my uncle? Like, that's a weird thing that happened. Yeah, these guys seem so much older than the rest of them.
Right.
But maybe the fact they had weed is they're like, yeah, sure, totally.
Yeah. And then speaking of having weed, then they definitely, like, one of the funniest 3D effects is handing a joint right into the camera.
Yes.
And I don't know, I giggled. It had the exact effect that it was supposed to.
It made me laugh. I mean, I pawed at the screen for a while and then I laughed.
Yeah, right. One of them immediately just says, "What happened to me at that lake was a long time ago. I'm over it."
Yeah.
And immediately the continuity guy in me, and again, just when you get to watch these like closely together, I'm like, who is she? Like, she's not a survivor from the previous ones and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of sticking with me for a while.
Also, what struck me here, and it's a tossed away line.
Oh, yeah.
Where Chris Higgins is the main girl here, but talking to her friend Debbie, hey, we'd be here, make a lot better time if you didn't have to stop to go to the bathroom all the time. And she says, yeah, that's what happens when you're pregnant. They just throw that out there.
It never comes up again, right?
No, other than like if you think about it when Jason kills her, it's like, oh man, for being sort of like this, these movies could be viewed as sort of a Reagan era reactionary thing to like, the young people and having sex and all the stuff. But like,
sure,
this wasn't a single mother. This she and her fellow were together. There was no talk about getting married.
Maybe that was a problem.
Yeah, no common law for Jason Voorhees.
Then they drive up to a man lying on the road, and they go to check him out, and he's holding an eyeball, and he sticks it right into our face.
You are indeed, all of you, kind and generous young people. Look upon what His grace has brought unto me.
What is that?
I found this today. There were other parts of the body.
That's an eyeball!
But he said he wanted me to have this. Yes. He wanted me to warn you. Look upon this omen and go back from whence ye came. I have warned thee. I have warned thee.
I have a lot of questions about this man because Ralph is dead.
Right. So Ralph, who is the harbinger, or maybe you would even call him a seer.
Oh.
Holding the eyeball.
Holding the eye. Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
I was too busy thinking about like who this guy was. Was he like a protege of Ralph's? Was he like a rival who moved in like, oh, the territory's open now. Now I can spread my gospel.
I like him as a rival Ralph.
Yeah.
I like the idea that he was there before Ralph got offed, because it was only, 12 hours ago that
it was
Ralph
only 12 hours
offed.
ago, yeah.
So maybe he and Ralph would have like a harbinger off. Like, you take the east side, I'll take the west side.
I'm working this side of the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's apparently a deleted scene with them that appears in one of, like, you see some stills. They ended up cutting it because it's just a fake out scare in the woods where they think it's Jason, but it's just him. And not much happens. But it's also covered in one version of the novelization of this movie. There are two different versions.
Two versions, and you did not read them?
No, I did not read them. I did read about what the differences were. I could only handle the footnotes, the Cliff's Notes.
Why were there two? Because I couldn't find a reasoning for the two separate novelizations.
Yeah, one is based on a slightly, or like an earlier version of the script, but...
Okay, that makes sense, because a person writing a novelization has to work from the script that they're given. And then if a script changes during production, then they're like, well, now my novelization isn't accurate. But then it went to publication. Okay, that makes sense. We get the classic kids getting to the campsite, finding their cabins, choosing their bedrooms, all that kind of stuff.
Higgins Haven this time. It's a home.
Right.
This is the first one outside of a cabin. Right. Not happening on a Friday the 13th. It's odd that they chose this as a continuation when there's no sign that what happened previously had happened. There's a news report about it. There's no cops around. Really, it has little to do with anything else. It could have just been like, no, Jason's, he's at it again.
Right,
but they try to do, even though he looks completely different, they try to do a continuity with it.
Absolutely. So yeah, they're all choosing their bedroom, and I just wrote, Rick's a jerk. He just talks about other women he would rather be spending time with, and he's just kind of like, why am I out here? You know, all the other girls I could be hanging out with.
Yeah,
like, ew, dude.
He's big on the negging part of the pickup artist thing. Like, he doesn't have the cool hat like Mystery, but he's a country boy pickup artist.
Right, and then we get to the Shelley's prank, where you hear him scream and everybody goes running, and we reveal Shelley's playing dead with an axe in his head, and nobody takes well to this. And I don't know if it's like that was just dumb, or kind of like what you were just saying. I'm just now thinking about this, but like, we're not trying to tie this back to the previous Friday murders. And so there's no extra tension of like, oh, there is a slasher around here. He's just being a goof.
Yeah, I mean, we know there's a slasher around already. Like, it's been established,
but the characters don't know. Like, they're not scared.
He's already faked out trying to murder somebody, and then faked out being murdered. Like, I want to know more about Shelley. Like, what is his home life like? Like, you see a picture of him and his mom, but like, does he just not get attention at home? Are his parents clowns and they support this kind of thing? I love you, Thun. It could be a supportive home, but they just do this shit, and it's not useful to anybody else.
He does have the red curly.
Red curly, yeah. And so he has a hard time communicating because he's used to doing clown stuff.
Yeah, this could be a normal thing.
And in regular life, people don't always like clown stuff.
Not at all.
But he could. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here pointing to him being like, he could be the Joker. He could be Todd Phillips, the Joker.
Yes, this is his origin.
Well, because he's misunderstood and he means well, but then like he's got some crappy stuff in him too. So
exactly, yeah.
I mean, he'd probably just be a Redditor now, but I like to think he's the
right. Then we do go off on this tangent here that I'm honestly not a big fan of the convenience store bit here. The bikers coming onto the land and chasing after them and causing problems and that kind of stuff. I just felt like, okay, you put this in the bucket of like, we need somebody different and we need a higher body count, so we bring these people in with some sort of conflict. But I'm just like, this seems like superfluous. Really.
It does. And again, like, for being sort of Reagan reactionary thing. Well, if we are trying to make this somewhat different than a guy in the woods, what if we brought in some minorities from an urban area?
Right.
Wouldn't that be terrifying? What if you had to see a black person
in the woods? Yeah. And then add to that they're also dressed like punks. So we also don't like punks.
Yeah. So it's an odd choice. Jason, to his credit, he doesn't discriminate. He just kills. He just takes them down like they were anybody else. So Victor Miller, one of his problems with the first one was that them adding that scene of the cop because he didn't like the idea of them being somewhat accessible. But this is just like, it's way more accessible because you have these people that figure out where they are, whatever. They're not just in the middle of nowhere.
I also I know there's bad punks. I know there's bad metalheads out there, but I have such a pet peeve in movies where they portray the punks as like bad people that are going to bully you because almost every punk and metal guy that I've ever known has been like the sweetest, kindest person. Yeah. And, having been a metal kid in high school, I was bullied by the jocks, not the metal guys.
I have growing up, like there was definitely some metal kids in my school, and I was terrified of them. But
betcha they were sweet.
Yeah, every metal person I met has been just like the nicest dude or person ever.
I guess it's time for Shelley to shine, I guess. So, because he drives the car away, fools one of the bikers, drives back, he's feeling like a hero type of thing. So I guess as a character moment, like it's good for him to gain a little confidence and stuff.
Yeah, it's sweet because he's supposed to be on this quote unquote date with Vera.
Oh, right.
Who I feel bad for because they bring her along promising a date, and it's Shelley.
Who does that?
Understandably, not thrilled. What's great, so when he does the prank, and like everyone is like down on him, like that's not cool, man. He didn't know Chris had this history with being attacked in the past. He was trying to be wacky, but no one's happy with him. And Vera's going to go to the store and get some stuff, and he's like, "Well, take me with you. I need to get out of here too." And so she begrudgingly agrees. And when they're at the store, needs money from Shelley. Shelley does the famous throwing the wallet at the camera. Right. Like it's the dumbest thing, but again, I love it. But before he's doing that, what's he doing in the store? He's reading porno. He's on a date with this person. He's trying to impress him. He's like, yeah, but there's porno right here.
Right.
Like, he's already talked himself out of it. It's not going to work. So he's at least Jugs can soothe my pain.
I'll sneak a peek. Yeah, I do know that he had to throw that wallet at the camera 30, 40 times or something. Because again, the 3D effects had to be spot on and the crew were getting mad at him. So could you just imagine being like a nerdy 18-year-old in your first movie and the crew's getting pissed at you because you can't throw something? I would have melted.
Yeah, it's not fun. I have been on a set where a thing I was supposed to do was not working. Not fun. Yeah.
Right.
When you're just starting out, you can't be like, hey, you guys know me.
Right. Exactly. When you've got 55, 60 people standing around waiting for you to do something right. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, feels great. It's great.
Right.
But it is a nice character moment because Vera starts to like Shelley, not like ooh, what a man, but more just like, hey, maybe you're not all bad.
Right. Maybe you're not useless.
Yeah, that it's a kind of a sweet little moment for Shelley. And I know people I know he's a divisive figure. Right. That some people really hate Shelley, whatever. I don't like him, but I do think he's interesting. He's the most interesting character.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the bikers follow them back to the house, and he immediately rounds the corner of the van, clearly trying to siphon gas from their van with a lit cigarette, which made me laugh. And then they all kind of split up, and we get a little bit of 10 to 12 to 15 minutes of the biker show here. Fox walks around, explores the barn. Another person ends up finding Fox's body.
Fox is pinned to the rafters with a pitchfork.
Right.
Loco finds her. Jason stabs him. Another pitchfork kill. Always have two pitchforks. They're planning to burn down the barn. Ali goes to find them, figure out what's going on. And Jason, you don't see the kill, but it to me is the most brutal one because you see Jason clocks him in the head and then just continues to just grind his head into mush behind a partition, so you don't see it. Right. And it's helpful that you don't see it for what happens later. That was the first kill that made me go oh, right, rather than the other ones, which were just sort of, I don't know. There's not that they weren't terrible, but it was just the brutality of that.
This seems more visceral. Yeah. I don't remember if I brought this up on the 0 or 1 episode, but I was kind of in the back of my head waiting for this kill with the pitchfork because when I was probably, I don't know, I could do the math in my head, but it would take too long. But I'm going to guess 8 years old or so. I was being babysat by somebody at my parents' church on Halloween night. And I remember walking in to the TV room, and she was watching this movie. And in my brain, I always thought it was a Friday the 13th movie, but I have this distinct image in my brain of her turning around, getting busted watching Friday the 13th by the kid that she's babysitting. And she was a very pious and, dare I say, performative person at the church. So that kind of goes to show for me that these movies were so damn popular.
Yeah.
That even these pious people, and I don't think she was watching it for research sake, just seeing what was out there. But yeah, that was one of those early childhood horror moments of, walking on my babysitter watching Friday the 13th Part 3. And I could not remember which movie it was, but I remembered the kill. So when I saw it this time, I was like, there it is. That's it. Alice was watching this movie. I think that was one of my favorite parts of watching it this time. So after that, Jason works his way through the biker gang. And, as the camera pans up after the last kill, we still have not seen above his neck at this point. And that's important.
They keep him very shrouded, which I started thinking about during this thing. I'm like, well, they stumble onto where Jason is hiding out, but I'm surprised she doesn't live in the house. But then I remembered this guy lived in a shack for years. I don't think he really cares about amenities.
Totally, yeah. Oh, gosh, at this point, yeah, Shelley kind of makes this move on Vera and turns him down. And evidently he was hounding the writers, too, behind scenes just to be like, hey, can't you write in a love scene for me? Can't I just win? Come on, guys, just do it for old Shelley type of thing. Still doesn't work.
Yeah, no, but and this is what I'm talking about with Shelley being the Joker, because she turns out and she's nice about it. Like she's not like me. She's like, no, it's not gonna happen. And then he's like, bitch.
I wrote that down too. But there's something almost like I took that line reading almost as if he was just reading the line, because he doesn't seem as viscerally mad as another shittier guy would say, bitch, you know? Like he says, sure, we'll talk, bitch. He kind of tosses it off.
It's almost half-hearted, but it's just like that. He can't even get enough in him to be mad. He's just that much of just this wet napkin of a human being.
Right. Is this? Yeah, this is the Chris's backstory, right?
This is a wild scene for just a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
Let alone the idea that they were initially okay, well, she survived this attack from Jason, but we're going to have it implied that he tried to rape her. Which
I was wondering about that.
They pulled back on that because they went that's really dark.
It's too much.
Which is wild, because this is a movie about a guy stabbing people through eyeballs and stuff like that.
Right.
But I agree, because is it's this funhouse goofball just gorefest thing that all of a sudden where you're adding this much more kind of heinous element to it.
Right. Yeah.
And it also sort of undermines Jason's whole deal if you want to go for the whole he just punishes people for having sex, because people having sex would kill him. Why would he be well, maybe I'll just see what this is about.
Yeah.
So they pulled back and just went, no, he just was trying to attack her. Because she just ran out. She was fighting with her parents, ran out into the woods and was going to make him wait. And she fell asleep. She woke up and he was coming at her. But the way they do this scene is so out there, because it kind of feels like a Unsolved Mysteries reenactment.
Right.
Because now this is the first one they shot on the West Coast. They left the East Coast to shoot this because it was easier to have access to the 3D tech. So they built out this whole area. They built a fake lake to do all this, which is really funny to think about. No, we need the cameras to work good, so we're going to build all this other stuff rather than just be where it happens.
Yeah, right.
But it's still outdoors, so I don't know why this feels so on a set, but it really does.
Right.
And while she's telling the story, because this is a flashback that's happening, and while she's telling the story, they do the total end of Twin Peaks season 3, episode 17, where it's just her face over what's happening. I don't know why they didn't just show it. It's a very sort of arty take on it, rather than just showing it.
Face over the action.
Fades in and out, and this predates Dune, so it's not like they saw that.
I also wonder, and I bet there are people who are way more into this series, and I applaud this kind of stuff. I'm not making fun of this kind of stuff, but I'm just I would love to know where in the chronology this happened. Did it happen before part 1? Did it happen after part 2, but before part 3? Well, no, not really, because that was just 12 hours ago. I'm just wondering, I guess if Jason's been hanging out in the shack for years.
Okay, so someone on the Friday the 13th.fandom.com tried to put together a timeline.
Oh, fantastic.
And of all the movies, including the fact that like, well, technically this all like the first one, or I'm sorry, the second one doesn't happen on, the first one doesn't happen on Friday the 13th. It happens on Wednesday the 13th, because that would be the year, the 13th of this, like whatever. Getting into that minutia about it, I don't care. But they do say that probably it was 1982 while staying at her family's summer home, Higgins Haven, 17-year-old Chris Higgins gets in a fight with her parents and runs in the woods. There she's attacked by Jason Voorhees. So this would have been, because there's a 5-year gap between the first one and the second one. Oh,
right. Yes.
So it happened in there. And then now it's like day after the second one.
Got it. That's an odd scene, but you know.
And you start to get a peek at this Jason.
Right.
Which, again, like they went in a whole different direction, really unexplained. And I did hear one argument that like the only time you see Jason in the second one is in her flashback, or not flashback, but the dream sequence at the end. In Ginny's flashback, when Jason jumps through the window. But people are like, so it's she hasn't really seen him, but she has. There's a scene of her taking off the bag and looking at him. So I don't think her brain would have just like, no, he looked like this. But they got rid of the hair and shaved him up. Unless he did that himself. He still has the droopy eye.
That's true.
And he's misshapen head like in the first one, but they make him a lot more monstrous. Not too monstrous, though, because that's why they got rid of the alternate ending, because they didn't like the makeup.
Right. Exactly. And he's still not Hulk Jason for later.
Yeah, but he's creepy. He is like much more lascivious in this when you do see his face, because that kind of smiling... like
he moves in a certain way. Like the actor who plays Jason in this was a circus performer, so like he knew how to kind of move his body in like subtle ways. If you're paying attention to that kind of thing, like he puts a little bit of a performance into this, and especially later on in the doc. Yeah,
cuts a much more imposing figure than the two gentlemen that played him in two.
Then we're moving on to Shelley is grabbing Vera's foot.
Yeah.
While she's on the dock right here, and this is a pretty important scene here because he comes out of the water with a harpoon and a hockey mask. Also, I did write down that Vera is pretty modestly dressed compared to a lot of past campers. Like
this one really like dials back the nudity as well. You see like there's just a couple of shower scenes and you get wafts of boobs, but not in the same way that the second one in particular really was.
Yeah, this is kind of a famous bit where he jumps out, scares her with a harpoon. Like, I don't know, who walks around with a fully loaded harpoon as a joke?
He brought with him 2 masks, a fake knife, axe thing for the head thing, and so he was committed to this fake murder bit. He didn't that was his routine. He didn't have any other bits. Call. You got to diversify, because that one went over like a lead balloon. But he's like, you know what? I bet if I try to kill someone this way, they'll respect me.
It is funny, too, because he does, not to nitpick this, but I just like it. He's got his little like bag of holding in the back of the van, and he says like, oh, my whole life is in here. A harpoon. He pulls out.
The wetsuit, though, does speak to his being uncomfortable with his body. That, you know, he's not just in there with just a T-shirt, but
there you go.
He's prepared.
But then we do get at the 1 hour mark, probably one of the most important scenes in the entire franchise, the first official intro to the hockey mask. And she thinks it's Shelley again, somehow.
Yeah. Did you get tall and balder? But you know, who knows what he's all got in the bag of tricks, which I will say real quick is that this is, again, like how great Vera is. Shelley's wallet is in the water. And rather than just be like,
right,
she actually goes to try to save it. So it's much more tragic that she's a decent human being.
Never help anyone. You know, never try to get their wallet out of the lake, or you will get a harpoon in the eye.
That is the lesson of this movie,
right?
Of this whole franchise.
This sequence is great because it's so well lit. It's ominous. Jason walks into frame with the hockey mask for the very first time, and we all obviously associate the hockey mask with Jason. This is the first moment. So he walks in on the dock. There's one light above him. He points a harpoon weapon at her, shoots her in the eye. Of course, the harpoon goes right at our face, because why wouldn't it?
It's got to. I'd be mad if it didn't.
She takes it in the eye, and then he walks off the dock And there again, like, I just like the way he moves right there. And for some reason, I thought of him whistling to himself right there. Like, he just, like, got off a nice kill and he walks back off the dock.
That's good.
Yeah, good for me.
I earned a Diet Coke.
Right. But it was, that's a super important scene in the franchise right there. I love it.
An impressive entrance.
Yes.
To be sure, because it is like, they don't milk it either. Like, they're just, here he is now, we're in this. Because, I mean, they didn't know. It's not like they knew how iconic that was going to be.
Of course, yeah.
I like how subtle. For how important it was, how subtly it's done.
It is funny, though, because if you think about it from the perspective of the first time we see a hockey mask, Jason shoots us, the audience, for the first time in the one shot. It's coming right for us.
This is the first camper, quote unquote, camper kill, rather than, the actual
right.
group. Well, he got Shelley already. It was off screen, but this is this is the first one we're seeing. And then he starts going in on them, and in the interim, Debbie and Andy have been having sex,
the marital
sex, the old in a hammock, because there's a joke that how that was her own room is a hammock, and I like this line because they get done and
it was the best one yet. Was it you, me, or the hammock?
I vote for me.
Yeah, the hammock was good, but I think I made myself bust pretty hard.
Right, exactly.
What a weird thing to say to somebody.
Right, exactly. On vacation.
I'm pretty sexy. I think it was me. I think I'm the one that did it for me.
Right.
He has a poster of himself on the wall. Let's look at it.
Then we got to have the shower scene, of course. She's taking a shower. Andy walks in on his hands.
Yes, I love this whole bit because you're just like, oh, what are they going to do with this?
And it does not disappoint. This I think, is my favorite kill in the movie. Mm-hmm. I'm allowed to say that on a horror podcast, right?
Yes,
Favorite kill without sounding like a weirdo.
No, it's fine.
This was so good. And obviously, I love thinking about the production elements of this and how hard it must have been done. And I like to appreciate out loud how hard this stuff is. Mm-hmm. But Andy walks out on his hands, looks up, sees Jason, who uses a machete and comes right down in his crotch. And it's not even like the machete hit. It feels so heavy when his body drops.
Yes.
And it drops on a piece of, they must have put a piece of plexiglass because
they put a plexiglass floor in, yeah.
Right. They put the camera underneath him while he's walking on his hands, and he just falls so hard. And I don't know. You just feel that. And there's a button on the end of that one later that we'll get to. But that moment was so fantastic. I rewound it like so many times. I slow-moed it just like to see where I could see the cuts and everything. And man, that's one of those ones that I'm sure was just like, all right, today in the production schedule is just this like 3 shots. Please, when you're walking on your hands, don't fall over. But it's hard. You know, I've been doing this for 4 hours. Then below camera shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was magical.
Yeah, it is great. And particularly, this movie does start to revisit a lot of the stuff from the first one.
Right.
Particularly like the way that Debbie gets killed is exactly how Kevin Bacon gets killed, which is a little disappointing. Just like, it's weird to be disappointed in someone's murder, but it's just like,
right. Yeah.
You did that already. So that one felt especially cool. And it wasn't like, it was grisly, but they could have been a lot grislier, but
it wasn't grisly, but there's just something about the way he falls and like his arms collapse out from underneath him that just like I felt that one, I guess. Whereas sometimes you don't feel it as hard.
Well, and it's funny, like coming through the era of torture porn being the thing. There's a certain amount of some of these older movies. You're like, oh, they really were restrained here. Where
right.
Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert are losing their minds about it, but you're like, oh, that's tastefully done.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Comparatively.
Yeah, and then jumping forward to the aforementioned getting stabbed through the neck, there is, of course, she's flipping through a Fangoria magazine. I really want to know why the choice was for the blood from the body above dripping on a shot of Godzilla when she just leafed past a shot of Tom Savini in Fangoria.
Oh, yeah.
Who did the makeup for the first one. Why don't you have the blood drop on the Tom Savini page?
Maybe there was some bad blood there, and they're like, no. You don't
bad blood.
Yeah, some good blood for bad blood.
Lest we skip over this, though, the blood that is dripping onto the Fangoria is from Andy, who is stuffed up into the rafters, and The makeup and effects on this are so good because you don't realize how far down that machete went into his body. It was way more brutal than I remembered it, actually.
Yeah. So you remember 2 seconds ago when I said how restrained it was? They went, that was too restrained. We better show all of the blood and all of his innards.
It's almost as if like it cut up to his sternum and then folded up over his legs up over his shoulders.
Yeah, he like spatchcocked it like you do to a chicken. Yeah.
It's just
he's a bastard in this one.
Right. And again, he takes the time to shuffle down the hallway, stuff a body up into the rafters, and then hide again under the bed. And then, stab her through the neck, much like the first one.
Yeah. He waited for the blood to drip down. Like he wasn't just like, well, she's down. Let's just kill her. Like he thought he'd have some fun with it. He's learning some things from Shelley.
Yeah, he's got some theatricality in him, and he knew
studied under Ra's al Ghul.
Exactly. He knew that the blood was dripping on the magazine from underneath the bed.
He could hear it.
I buy it.
Yeah.
I do love that we cut from one of the most brutal shots like that to the hippie popping popcorn right in your face
in 3D again.
Yeah.
You're like, relax, everybody. Here's some popcorn.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's go out to the lobby.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Shelley's throat is slashed, and it's totally one of those he's crying wolf type of things.
Which I had admittedly completely forgotten the hippies were in this movie.
Absolutely.
When he was popping popcorn, I'm like, oh right, yeah, Uncle Hippie is still here, and they have a fun exchange that makes you think about them naked. And they she sends him downstairs because the electricity keeps going wacky, and you get to see gross hippie feet. Which, unless you're Quentin Tarantino, no one's a fan of that.
That's cool.
This what I like here is the fake out with Shelley's death, and then the hippie Jason kills the hippie by electrocuting him, so literally frying his brain.
Oh yeah,
like the drugs were.
There you go.
When because it's the hippies are Chuck and Chili. And
Jesus.
When Chili realizes that Shelley isn't playing, that he's actually dead. Her like, oh no, he's dead is just one of the funniest things. Because she is just like slowly going through the house, like crying, like, no rush, don't,
right.
Just, oh, he's dead. He's saying, like just this sad little like trot around, not going to look for Chuck, who's like ostensibly just right there.
Right.
She doesn't know he's dead, but it's just like, I'll tell somebody, I guess.
Right. But before she can say anything, she gets the hot poker through the gut. And I noticed that Jason delicately carries her body away. After, it was so nice. And again, that was one of those, they filmed it from the point of view of like her gut, basically with the hot poker coming at the camera. And even just thrusting the hot poker, they said took about 57 or 60 takes.
God.
Just
like
standing
shit.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just standing there trying to get the technology to work.
Worth
it.
I mean, I just imagine like pre-production meetings going through the script being like, okay, what can we jam at the audience? We need to have something in like every other scene that we can throw at the audience. What do we? Okay, so right here he's doing this. He hands her the wallet. Why don't we have him throw it at her?
I love the AD is just saying there, like, you do realize that's going to add 3 hours to the schedule, right? Yeah.
It's going to pay off. Like, everyone's going to remember the wallet shot.
Exactly,
And we do.
This next shot to me was actually kind of chilling right before the big payoff, but Chris is wandering around looking for Rick, and he's outside and he's being held by Jason, like with Jason's hand over his mouth, and he can't scream at all, but it's all framed in one shot where she can't see them right around the corner, and that was kind of scary to me. It's a little creepy because
it's also again a little bit more malevolent isn't the right word, but just like you'd think Jason would just be like, stab, throw, done.
Right.
But this is like, no. I'm going to keep you alive for a little bit just to kill you in 5 seconds later. But right now, we haven't talked about this yet, but it was such an odd choice for Rick Bombay to that sweater. For a second, I thought that was Pamela Voorhees' sweater. It's not.
I mean, it looks really exactly like it.
It's really, really close. Like the patterns are different, but like the same color, whatever. Like this is before the era of like, well, we know Easter a bunch eggs. Of nerds are gonna freak out about this. Let's toy with them,
right?
Or maybe maybe they were already getting letters of people asking like, where can I buy this sweater? Like,
right,
well,
right.
That did good, so let's sell a new sweater.
It does culminate in one of the better 3D shots in the film where after she goes back inside, Jason just full on just squeezes his head and busts one of his eyeballs out that goes right into our face. And it's fantastic. And my favorite part about it, and this is not a criticism, but you can see the fishing line.
Yes. Same thing on the snake. You can see the fishing line, and I love it. It makes me happy.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it restored. I don't want to see it digitally taken out.
Yeah.
I want it to be like, man, making this shit's hard, and you still love it. Like when you see the fishing line.
Yeah,
it makes me happier.
It adds, particularly for this one, it adds to the whole atmosphere of the whole thing. Like, no one is concerned about the realism of this movie, you know? So it's, having something like that, it's seeing the rafters a little bit is fun.
Especially like if you care about how the effects are done and if you're interested in that kind of thing, like we are, like it just makes me like, I don't know, I appreciate them even more, even if they couldn't hide it. And they were just like, dude, we have tried every possible way to make this happen. And fuck it.
Yeah.
You're seeing the fishing line.
It wasn't 3D, then we won. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. It's great. It's unexpected and thrilling because his eyeball's coming right at you. And even in not 3D, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it would have worked even in not 3D.
Yeah.
From here on out, it's just we just start the classic Jason chasing down our final girl, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes through like a lot of the same gimmicks that the first one did, where the body drops down from off screen. Someone gets thrown through a window.
Oh yeah, the window, right?
Yeah, Jason's chasing her around. She goes into the house, is able to dump a bookcase on him from the second floor because the only way to defeat Jason is knowledge.
Did she drop knowledge on him?
She drops some knowledge.
Yeah. Oh God.
And then there's a great like 3D gag where he throws the knife at her and it goes like right at the camera. And she gets a couple of like stabs in to wound him, which again is sort of this nice reminder for his how like omnipresent and this force of evil he's been. That no, he's still a guy,
right?
At least at this point. They go in the morning. She hides up in the rafters, and apparently that was like 20 feet up when she's climbing on that that thing, which is a little scary.
We did skip over a part. I would have been fine with skipping it over, but I did find this a little bit tense where he's sticking his arms into the van window that's kind of like stalled out on the bridge.
Yeah, because like the punks getting rid of the gas, that finally pays off.
Yep.
She runs out of gas.
A loose board pays off because it's stuck on the bridge.
Yeah.
But like Jason's trying to stick his arms through the window to grab her, and she rolls the window up and traps his arms and gets out. Just like gonna remember that trick.
That's something that happens to you a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Just in case.
But yeah, I like that his solution is, well, just bashing the window with my skull. You know,
right.
That seems like a very Jason move.
And so yeah, they do get down to the barn, and he just sort of like ransacks the place, right?
Yeah, because he can't find her, so he's pissed, and so he does this Charles Foster Kane throw everything around, get mad thing, and then she drops down on him from above.
Right.
But then the door's locked, and she can't get out.
She bashes him with a shovel several times, and then like he goes down, and she throws the rope that we kind of skipped over previously,
the hay bale
around his neck. Yeah, and starts to hang him, which is pretty brutal, actually.
It's pretty brutal, and that's when so she thinks he's dead, and no, he starts moving again, and like the mask comes off, which reveals that he's the same guy that attacked her years ago.
Look, I hesitate to poke too many holes into this because I don't want to like question a woman realizing who her attacker is, but like, is this the first time that she realized that this is the same guy because he saw a face?
Yeah.
I would have been like, "You're the guy."
It would be a safe assumption that it was the same dude, but the cops in this town aren't very good because, like I said before, like there's no like dragnet or anything in the woods. There's no sign of cops really. So I guess when her parents were like, yeah, our daughter was attacked by this man in the woods, and the cops were just like, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is she okay? Well, then I'm not worried. Then it's not a crime. I'm not worried about it. But yeah, and it's also interesting just to think about Richard Brooker that played Jason. It took like 6-7 hours to put all these different like appliances on him. I think there were like 11 different ones. And then he had to put a mask on top of that. That was only like in this like 1 or 2 scenes. Most of the time they just had like this head thing and they just stuck his face through and then they put the mask on.
Right.
But still like, it's just so strange to think about sitting in a chair for 8 hours while someone's just putting makeup on your face.
Couldn't do it. Yeah. They give him his pipe so he gets piped through the appliances, and then he could like suck down a protein shake for lunch type of thing. It's a commitment to the art.
Yes. But the makeup looks good. You know, I think it's It's like I said, it's inexplicable to me why they cleaned him up like that. But
right.
Also, like for a dude that lives in the woods, like and how he lives, he's a clean guy. Like his clothes are always
Right.
very neat. Like I put on a shirt and I got a tomato stain on it somewhere immediately.
Right.
It doesn't matter what I'm doing. But Jason, he runs a tight ship.
Exactly. Yeah. So then the one of the bikers comes back, saves her.
Yeah, I guess he just came to.
He came to after getting smashed several times.
Several times in
Gets
the
his
head.
hand chopped off and then is quickly dispatched.
Yeah.
So again, never help anybody. But then Jason takes an axe to the head. And I love this because he just starts walking towards the camera in a 3D effect, which is one of the like great shots that I'm sure they had planned out for the entire thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's coming out of the screen at you.
So yeah, she gets the final axe to the head. He goes down, and then it cuts to her launching a canoe in the lake to take a nap,
Just like Alice.
much like the first one. She wakes up screaming, and then every possible jump scare in the lake, like a little log and stuff like that happens. Yeah. It gets a little confusing here, and maybe it's just because I've read too many of the alternate take ideas and stuff like that. But like, she looks up and he's in the window and he's bloodied. Jason's bloodied and his mask is off.
Yeah.
And then he starts running after her, right?
Yeah.
That's shown to be a dream sequence. And then out of nowhere, somebody jumps out of the lake, just like in the first film. But it's Pamela Voorhees.
Yes.
So she's like the lady in the lake here.
I guess like it doesn't make a lick of sense because when she's in the canoe and it's daytime and like she sees Jason in the window, already like it feels off. It just feels like a little bit more surreal than this thing usually is, and I kind of was digging on that because he's clawing at the window and very sort of lasciviously grinning and drooling, and then so he's coming to get her, and then out of nowhere Pamela Voorhees comes out of the lake. Would she even know who Pamela Voorhees was? Because it's revealed it's a dream sequence,
right?
So it's either like okay, there's just this malevolent force in the woods culminating in these forms.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense though. Cause like she would have no idea who these people are. Pamela's head is on her body again for whatever reason. And they got the sweater back and I don't know, whatever.
But yeah, she's having a dream about somebody that she doesn't know.
She doesn't know. And
but the viewers know.
Right. And it's just an odd choice to have that happen other than to like throw a curveball at everyone and be like, aha, guess what? Now it's this. Of course. Yeah. Don't think about it. Goodbye, everybody. Because she wakes up and she is losing her mind, a la the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Always a fan of that. Always a fan of like the completely broken protagonist. Not necessarily, for the rest of her life, but just the like, this is a horrible thing she just went through. And just be like, well, glad that's over. Never really sat right with me. I like someone that's just completely just shattered by the situation.
Exactly, yeah. And then we fade over and we see Jason's body lying in broad daylight where she left it. Like he hasn't escaped. There's not a blank shot there. And that's it. Yeah. And so the franchise is done.
Yep, that's it. They wanted to just make 3. They're like, we're done doing this. And then they did. So it was very... very smart, very tasteful. They didn't let it get too ridiculous. Like at no point does someone go to space,
right?
Or Manhattan. Can you imagine someone being in Manhattan? Absurd,
right? Even at the wrap party, evidently the producer made a big announcement, like we are done. Yep. That is it. We have killed Jason. But then the box office receipts came in, and they made close to $40 million. Yeah. And
they made a ton of money, and you're not walking away from that.
Right?
They even had a cake that said like "Happy Death Day, Jason." So I'm curious to see. I know you've seen it. You mentioned that you watched before. I am curious to see how or if they even explain how he comes back. Yeah, or if they're just like, well, "What are you talking about?" Jason just gaslights us all.
Right.
But this one had, I think, the highest death count so far, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go to the in memoriam and we can count them up real quick. Harold Hockett, played by Steve Suskind. Cleaver through the chest. Edna Pocket, played by Cherry Maugans. Head stabbed with a knitting needle. Fox, played by Gloria Charles. Throat impaled with a pitchfork. Loco, played by Kevin O'Brien. Stomach impaled with a pitchfork. Vera Sanchez, played by Catherine Parks. I shot with a spear gun. Andy, played by Jeffrey Rogers, sliced in half with a machete. Debbie, played by Tracy Savage, back impaled with a knife. Shelley Finkelstein, played by Larry Zerner, throat slashed with a machete. Chuck, played by David Cattons, electrocuted by a fuse box. Chili, played by Rachel Howard, stomach impaled with a hot fireplace poker. Rick, played by Paul Kratka, head crushed, eye popped out towards us. Allie, played by Nick Savage, hit with a wrench, hacked with a machete. And that was that number. So yeah, it did feel like there was a higher death count, especially with the counselors and then adding the bikers to it, getting more people in there. Yeah, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I can't remember. Have you seen 4?
I've not seen 4. Okay. I've not seen, I think the next one I would have seen is 6. Jason Lives. That's the one. That's the next one I've seen. Yeah.
Yes. I had to check the DVD spine real quick.
Because I will be looking forward to rehashing an argument I had about that movie once again, probably 20 years later. So it's going to be fun.
All right. Does that mean I have to take a particular stance?
You just might help settle it. You might just be like, gotcha. No, I agree with you. Or
right.
No, we'll see what you think about it. But this, you know what? I gotta say, everyone's tired of hot takes. We're in no shortage of that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Friday the 13th is better than The Godfather in that it had a more successful part 3.
Oh, there you go.
That's it. That's all based on that criteria alone.
That criteria alone.
It had a more satisfying part 3.
Right. Okay.
Because that's true of so many movies. The RoboCop, Godfather, right. Alien, Mighty Ducks, heavy hitters all, and somehow Friday the 13th sneaks in there with a kick-ass part 3.
With a really good part 3. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good movie, but man, it's a fun ride. It knows what it is.
It's really entertaining.
Yeah, it's not trying to be anything more than what it is, and I respect that.
And it does shift around a little bit from the other two. Like again, there were some right turns here. And that's fun to track. Which is
a little bit disappointing that it does delve into the first one, revisits the well from the first one so much.
Especially at the end.
They've done so many other different things, and it was like, oh, come on, don't start copying and pasting now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got a couple more interesting kills in you, but
exactly,
it's still there's enough there. It's still really fun. It's probably my favorite one so far.
Yeah,
I mean, I like the first one like more as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one I've had the most fun watching.
I guess if you're gonna, if you know that this is your last one and you want to do some sort of stupid full circle thing, like that doesn't really make sense, but it's like some sort of fan thing.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't. I wouldn't have gone that route, but I understand why they did that, pulling that out at the end. Which
is interesting to think about, just in terms of fandom is so ever present now, and so many things are made just for the fans or whatever. What was that concept like in the 80s? Was that even a consideration? Was it something where like, well, the people that have enjoyed this, that got us here, they'll appreciate it, or something like, I liked it, so I'm going to do it again.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, there's certainly, if you are a fan and liked what happened at the end of the first one, you'll like what happens in this one.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, that's going to do it. And I will see you next time for Friday the 13th, part 4, the final chapter, because part 3 was not the final one like they thought. So we're going to make one more, which is the final chapter.
So it's basically every movie now is like a Lord of the Rings ending. They're just like, no, not yet. No, we got one more ending.
Yep,
we got one more ending.
One more in us, and they're all emotional, and they'll still make James cry.
Oh,
exactly.
They're all epilogues. I'm looking forward to Jason making me laugh and cry about love all over again.
So yeah, come back next time, and we'll talk about part 4.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
All right, good night.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling, and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find at Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This Will Hurt a Bit Pod, and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. email us at thiswillhurtabitpod@gmail.com. And if you're so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.